Oh my gosh, we are alive. Kumbaya. Let me adjust this. Look at all my beautiful plants. Hello, friends. Happy Wednesday. We are doing the dang on thing today. We are talking about things fungal infections, parasites. Why? Because I get asked about them all the time. People ask if these are things that could be causing them their health and wellness to be failing or maybe not being able to hit some of their health goals. There she is, Dr. Loredana. All right, so we're going to have her come on. She'll do an intro, and then we have lots of questions because I'm super excited. I am super excited. Boom. Yes, she's being finicky, that phone. There it is. Hopefully you got something to drink. I literally was like, oh,
Hi, here we are.
we're doing it.
Hi, how's it going?
Pretty good. How are you?
Doing great. I'm so happy to be here.
I am so happy. So I am just swooning after hearing you talk at PAX Cairo. And I was like, I just want to be in her brain and know her because there's so much information that you were just like dropping at the talk at PAX. And I'm like, yes, yes, more people need to hear this. My folks need to hear this because these are questions that are not my area. Like I feel like we all have our expertise and our specialties. And although I am familiar with parasites and fungal infections and candida, it's not my bread and butter.
Yeah,
So,
this is my bread and butter for sure. I deal with this all the time.
so I am super excited. So we're going to dive into it. But before we get started, I know we have some questions, but if you don't mind just kind of sharing, obviously, who you are, what you do, how you got into it, and letting just everyone know about you.
Yeah, cool. Well, thanks for having me, everybody. I am Dr. Loredana Shafson. I am traditionally trained as a pharmacist. I did that for 12 years, and I just saw an unhealthy pattern of people just needing more and more medicine, more and more side effects, getting younger and younger and younger, and it was disgusting. That is literally the word that I could say, disgusting. So, during this time I was researching about my own health. I had my own health issues. And I started to go to school for nutrition. And what I do now in the office is what healed me from my high blood pressure. I also had fungal infections and mold exposures, different adrenal fatigue issues. I was losing my hair. I mean, I was doing everything right, eating
Yeah.
organic, clean, exercising, doing all the things, and I was still sick. And I was like, what the hell is going on? So got me down this path of doing what I do now in my office, and here I am helping other people find their own journey to wellness. So
How did you even come to the direction of like it's mold inside? Like you said you were doing all the things but still weren't getting any better. Like what was that kind of like light that was like, oh my gosh, do I have mold? Do I have parasites? Like what was that kind of thing where you're like, okay, this isn't doing it. We need to explore this avenue.
So my exposure was blatant because I had an environmental exposure, which is what majority of people, how they are exposed to these things in our homes, work, offices, wherever there's water. And if it sits longer than 24 to 48 hours, definitely by 48 hours, there's mold growing and it loves
And
dry.
water?
Yeah. So I got my mold exposure at my workplace. And I remember rolling up this like rubber mat that was like on tile, but moisture was being held in between. And when I rolled it up, it was like foamy. It smelled awful. But if I could smell it, that means I was inhaling the spores. Within like, I don't know, 3 or 4 days later, maybe 5 days later, I had a rip roaring as a female, very embarrassing vaginal infection. My first time ever in my entire life had I ever had anything vaginal. And I was like, what is this? And then I realized, oh my gosh, I was exposed to microbes. I thought it was bacteria. I thought it was mold. It was everything. And then from that point on, I gained weight. I developed anxiety. I had all these different issues that I started to research and dive into how to correct myself. So for me, it was very obvious, but for other people, it might not be so obvious, which is the tricky part about it.
Yeah. And that's one thing I think because a lot of the symptoms when you look up like mold or fungal infections, they look like a lot of other things, right? Like the fatigue, the brain fog, the anxiety. So then you start thinking like, well, maybe it's my thyroid, maybe it's my estrogen, maybe I have a food allergy. So if you have someone that comes to you and they're like, I'm experiencing all these things, how do we rule this out? What are some of the tests that you lean to help you with diagnosing and differentiating between conditions and root causes?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. The symptoms overlap with so many other conditions, which makes it so hard for regular doctors to kind of figure out on their own. But obviously let's talk about a little bit about symptoms and I'll talk about some testing. So
Yes.
some visible symptoms can be obvious, right? Vaginal yeast infections, the itchiness, any discharge, oral thrush, which is the white on your tongue. So you can all do this at home. Stick your tongue out, look at it. Is it white? Is it coated? Can you scrape it off?
Right.
That may mean that you have oral thrush. And note that your mouth is a part of your GI tract. So if it's in your tongue, it's in your gut. Okay. So that's another good indicator. You also have toenail fungus, ringworm. Those are the obvious ones. But then you have the fatigue, the mood swings, the anxiety, the weight gain, headaches, migraine, pain, could present as asthma, allergies, all this stuff. So one, I look for the most visible symptoms and see if that cues me in. Okay. When it comes to lab testing, if you were to go to a doctor and say, I'm curious about this, it's called a urinary oat test. Have you heard of this one before?
Yes.
Yep. Do you use it?
So I have only ordered it once since I started doing solo practice, but when I was a student clinician, we ordered it like pretty much every shift I was on, it was being ordered.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
So did you look at it for candida and mold markers at all, or were you looking at it for the nutritional stuff?
Candida and mold.
Okay, exactly. So that is so you're very familiar. That is the best test to show candida and mold, because candida and mold, all their mycotoxins, they release all of their toxins through urine. So it comes out in the kidney. So that's why most people also present with kidney problems. They almost present with like an interstitial cystitis is another big thing I see is like, what were you going to say?
Only because literally everything you're saying, I have been seeing an increase in interstitial cystitis cases. And usually when I start to see a couple, I'm like, what is the common theme here? So now it's just like a light bulb. I'm like, now we need to explore this, refer, because I didn't even think that. But now that you're saying it out loud, for those who don't know, interstitial cystitis, think of it as like leaky gut for your bladder. You get a lot of irritation. You might think you have a UTI, but it's deeper than that. That's why it's kind of light bulb. So continue. Yes.
Yeah. So because all the toxins are getting excreted through your kidneys. So it's naturally your kidneys are going to get irritated. Then the tissue becomes weak and then you start presenting with more kidney stuff. So urinary oat test is the best. A lot of people will rely on GI stool tests and they're not really sensitive for candida. So urinary oat is the way to go. Any doctor can order it. It may or may not be covered by your plan. If it's not, it's around 300, 320 maybe, depending on the lab company, but it's worth it. I run it in a lot of my really sicker patients and we'll do it again. And I use that test to actually gauge how long I need to treat them on a prescription. So in this case, I do support prescriptions when it comes to nystatin, fluconazole, itraconazole. Those are important for this type of condition. So that'll tell me how long they need to be on nystatin, and everybody's different. Usually it could be 2 to 4 months, sometimes longer. They need to be on a particular medication like that, as well as other stuff that I put them on for support.
For sure.
Yeah.
When someone gets put on something like nystatin, are there other, because again, I'm pretty sure you see this in your population, some people are really hesitant or adverse to being on some type of prescription. So what are some things that you tell them that can help to further support so that they know that it's not going to be damaging? Like what's some of the kind of language? Because again, people sometimes are like, you know what, I've had enough of conventional medicine. I don't want to do any prescriptions. How do you kind of combat that conversation and let people know that this is what we need and these are things that you can do in addition to supporting you?
Look, like not all modern medicine is bad. Like we wouldn't be where we are today without it. And so as much as there are a lot of bad things to say about it, there's a lot of good as well. So we have to understand that infections used to kill us back in the day before we had antibiotics and antifungals and all of these things. So in these situations, you need to really evaluate the risk versus benefit. And when it comes to fungal infections, I think it's 100% benefit to use nystatin. If your doctor's on board with it, if they can grasp it and understand it and they're educated about it, absolutely worth it. The nystatin, that whole class has very minimal side effects. You won't really experience anything. You might have to get your liver checked before you start the medication, and then also periodically, maybe a month or two in, if you're going to stay on it long term, because it can raise your liver enzymes, but it's like a transient effect. It's not like a long-term damage. So for the couple months out of your life, in the grand scheme of your entire year span, it's not going to make or break you.
Yeah. Okay. This is good. And I had another question because we talked a little bit about, you had said like candida and yeast infections and vaginal infections. And I meet so many women that will tell me that they get like monthly recurring chronic yeast infections. And I can't even When I hear that, I'm like, you poor thing and your poor lady, because those are not, they're not friendly. So for someone who comes in and that's like probably like their only issue, would you still consider running testing on them? Do you just automatically go to start treating the candida?
Yeah, so I don't run the testing in everyone because, like I said, it's expensive and most people's insurances may or may not cover it. And so that's a blatant, obvious, yes, you're having yeast infections. You've got yeast in your body. We need to handle that. So I just go, if I'm treating somebody or helping somebody get through it and they're not seeing results, then I'll do a test to kind of do that differential stuff. So yeah, I'll go right to treating it. And in this scenario, you know, the over-the-counter stuff, the 3 to 7 day, you know, the miconazoles, sometimes you need that to kind of bring down the population, but the core of correcting that is gut health and getting probiotics and rebalancing and going on a candida cleanse.
Oh, you said it. She said the word, the magical word of candida cleanse. Okay, hold on to that, but really quickly. So you're saying recurring yeast infections are a sign of something deeper, and that monostat that you're taking over the counter is literally just a temporary Band-Aid.
Exactly. Yep, it is a Band-Aid. Yep, which is what modern medicine does. It helps us get through it, but we need to fix the root problem, which is, you know it.
And so many women I know, they're like, oh, I get them all the time. And I'm like, what? No. That's not normal. Like, we can talk about it being common and regular, but you should not be having monthly, weekly. When I hear some people like, no, it's just like a revolving door. They get rid of one, it comes back again. So I'm so happy to hear you say that. And then let's lean into my favorite topic, candida cleanses.
What is your experience with it and what do you know about it?
So my experience with it, it's very intense to follow. The whole idea and premise is we need to lower candida population because we actually have some candida in our gut as part of our microbiome.
Yeah.
But we need to really just destroy and be aggressive with it. So it's really the die-off. What I'm familiar with it is it's not like a weekend thing that you do. It's going to take at least a couple of weeks. The shortest I think I've ever seen it was like 3 weeks, and someone started seeing some symptom improvement. But I know that it's very rigid, and that's kind of my extent of it. So when I see people saying, just do a weekend candida cleanse, just do this, and I'm like, is that really doing what we need to? And if you're still eating honey and stevia, and here's the thought, like, oh, but it's natural sugar, but I'm still like, no, your body doesn't differentiate sugar from a Snickers and sugar from honey. And I tell people this all the time, it's still going to spike insulin. It's still going to have the same effect. Yes, you might get a little bit more benefit from sugar in an apple because there's fiber and vitamins, but there's no special receptors that say, oh, good sugar, natural, bad sugar. Yeah, so that's my extent of it.
Yep. And that's pretty much it, is it's not a weekend fix. It's not even a couple week fix. My history is it takes longer than 6 months to fix.
Ooh.
And I follow another functional medicine doctor who specializes, and she reports a minimum of 8 months, and she does run all the lab work all the time and does that. So I tell people you're in for the long haul. And look, we're not asking you to be perfect on your diet because it is a very strict diet to follow. But I'll tell people no fruits, you can't do it. Yeah. You know, very minimal if you're doing natural sugars, because you're right, your body still responds the same way, and candida loves sugar. That's what they feed off of. It's part of the reason that the world is in this problem is the diet of too much refined carbs and sugar. They're just being fed it all day, every day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and all the snacks. Yeah. So of course they're going to thrive. So unfortunately, diet is a huge part of the diet. And there's a couple ways to go around the diet. One is you should remove foods that are inflammatory because your body's already dealing with infection, inflammation, and the trash that mycotoxins release, or the mycotoxins. Mycotoxins in comparison are 300 times more toxic than alcohol. So it is a huge stress on the body. So when you feel like crap and everything's going downhill, that's why they're really aggressive. They used to use it as like a war weapon. The Russians used it in the early 1900s. It was a mold toxin. They called it yellow smog in the air. They sprayed it on people, and even in Vietnam. So super interesting.
Wow.
Yeah. So diet is a tricky one, but there's things that you can do. So you talked about, okay, let's give you a tidbit. What can our listeners take away from this is if you think you have mold and candida, you have to avoid foods that are inflammatory. So I'll list 4 of them. So gluten is number 1. Gluten is a grain. Grains are inflammatory. Bottom line, there's more omega-6s. It's not easily digested. It irritates the gut lining. We have refined carbohydrates and sugar, right? Because that's what they feed on. And sugar just in general is inflammatory. And then you have dairy. because dairy feeds on grain, corn, soy, all those things that are covered in mold. So they're actually also carrying more omega-6s, and then also industrial seed oils, which we know is the canola, the soys, all those fake vegetable corn oils.
Right.
Then people don't realize that some foods just inherently have mold in them. So one is grains. So now we're overlapping grains, because grains like corn, barley, wheat, rice, oats, they all sit in silos, and they sit for long periods of time before they actually travel to the destination. So in that sitting process, mold grows on it. I think the European Union did a study, and they found that 40% of their samples of grain contained mold. And then we're eating it. The next thing is milk and milk products and cheese. They're all mold. Think of blue cheese, right? The smelliness of it. It's a yeast. It sits for a year. It's aged cheese. Cured beets are another one. They sit for long periods of time, and that's actually how it cures, is it's growing mold on the outside. Dried fruits are another thing, because sugar, they're drawn to it. And most people don't know this, but peanuts, including peanut butter, actually have been tested to contain a mycotoxin called aflatoxin.
Yes.
So some people feel like crap when they eat peanut butter, and it's because of that, maybe that mold toxin that you're adding already into your mold picture. Conventional coffee is another surprise for many people. Coffee, in the same way, coffee needs to be grown in moist, cooler climates, and so just that environment alone will allow mold to grow on it. And then you have wine and beer. They're fermented. They put yeast in it, you know? So how are we doing with questions? Anyone coming through here yet?
So Lindsay just said, "Oh no, not me eating blue cheese right now." Kayla said, "OMG." I think we have one of your clients that basically said you were like a godsend and helped with correcting her stuff. I just want to double check to make sure, because I know we had a lot of questions that I got via Instagram. Parasites. Same way in terms of treating as you would like a candida or a fungal. What's the difference there?
Yeah, so actually big difference. So while you have a lot of control, or you can have a lot of control with mold and candida, parasites are a little different. Those guys, your diet does really change. Need herbal products and they need support. So you need to target them directly and strategically. So that's the biggest difference.
Wait, Dr. Loredana, are you still there? Don't do this to me, internet. Okay.
Yeah, you're freezing up a little bit.
Yeah, I know. I was like, wait,
Yeah,
you're freezing, I'm freezing. We had someone ask about mold-free coffee. No, dang it. Not when the conversation is getting juicy. Instagram, just please behave. Wait. Come back to us. Uh-oh. No, we're gonna wait. Is it back? Are we back? Oh gosh. No. I refuse to say that this is coming down. No. No, 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 no. All right. Thank you, Kayla, for the recommendation. Bulletproof coffee is mold-free. Dr. Loredana, oh no. Laugh at you, peep talking the gram. I just want Dr. Loredana to come back. So I'm going to stay on, and we're going to see if she can hop back on. Okay, so what did we learn so far? Mold is everywhere. Coffee, alcohol, cheese are some of the big things. Here we go. We're gonna pick back up. She's back. But we can find workaways around it. I think we're just getting into the conversation on parasites.
Yes.
Oh my God. Yes, she's back. I was like, okay. I'm not ending this. I am going to stay on here until she comes back. Okay, so I was just saying a quick recap of molds and being aware of them. Peanuts, wine, alcohol, cheese. A lot of our grains that sit in silos and just chill out there until they make it to store and then make it to home. Someone asked about mold-free coffee option.
Yes, I have two. First one is Bulletproof Coffee. That's a Dave Asprey brand. He tests his for mold. And the other one is Kion, Kion. Those are two companies that I know for sure that test for mold.
Okay.
Anytime you're buying organic, you're going to be better off, because when you're using pesticides and herbicides, you're also disrupting the nature's microbiome, right? And so then you're killing the bacteria, and now fungus and mold can overgrow. So going with organic coffee is going to be better, but still need to do your research.
And then someone asked a question, is there like an acceptable level of mold that won't start to cause health issues?
Yeah, so that's going to be different. That's patient dependent, right? Everyone has their level. How healthy are you? How sick are you? That's going to be number one. And two, there's actually some genetic data. I don't know all the details around it, but 25% of the population carry a genetic, what they call it, an allele that makes them more susceptible to mold and candida illness. So, but yeah, so it's really patient dependent. How healthy are you and how well are you doing? And then number two is, are you living in a moldy environment? That's probably the biggest thing people need to look out for is my home clean? Is my work clean? And there's simple ways to test at home that are affordable.
What are some of those recommendations?
So there's a company called CitraSafe, and I think our partner, let me just type this in here so everybody has it. CitraSafe. And they have a secondary company called Immunolytics.
Okay.
And these Immunolytics company, what they do is they'll send you little Petri dishes and you put them in each of the rooms in your house. And I think each dish is like $30. It's not that bad. You put them in where you think you have mold, and the spores, if it's in the air, it'll go into the product, and then they'll send it off for testing. They'll tell you what strain it is, what species it is, and then you can take a look and they'll give you an analysis of your house.
We're all going to be doing that this evening. They're going to get an influx and a surge. I'm already thinking like, I'm pretty sure this place has some mold in here.
Yeah, heating and air conditioning is a big issue. If there's any water, anytime you had a flood, a leak, any kind of damage that way.
Right. Okay. Any antimicrobial supplement suggestions?
Yeah, so kind of a loaded question. So it depends on what we're talking about. So if it's mold or candida, or if it's parasites. So mold and candida, there's a lot of different products out there. I actually truly like the candida blended products. So you'll see things like candida complex, where they're called multivitamins, and it's because when you're dealing with candida, they also live within other bugs in our belly, so they like to protect themselves. And so sometimes when you go after mold, you also have to go after parasites because they live within each other. And then they also create these biofilms around themselves. It's almost like a shell. It's their protection, their armor. When they know they start getting attacked, they go into hiding so that the herbs and nutrients that we're giving don't reach them. So a lot of these blended products will have enzymes in there that will break down that biofilm, and then this way it exposes the mold and candida. So always, if you're looking at a product, like one I really like is Candida Complex by Claire Labs. I use them a lot.
That's exactly the one I was thinking. I'm like, does she use Claire Labs Candida? Yes. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, there's a couple other products. Actually, and a simple nutrient grapeseed extract is really great for that. And I'm just pulling up some of my notes here. But I use grapeseed extract a lot. It's anti-inflammatory. It's good for microcirculation and good for candida and mold.
Perfect. And I think another one that came through was black walnut.
Yeah, I heard about that. So honestly, I had to look it up when you sent me that question yesterday. I've never heard of it being used for fungus and mold, but I definitely am familiar with it with parasites. So, and after researching it, I realized that, it's a good option, but I've never used it. But what I do know is if I'm treating for candida, I know that I'm handling the mold too, so it's a good thing. So
okay, perfect. Someone else asked, I use Life Boost. Any thoughts?
Life Boost, I'd have to look it up. Is that like a supplement? Or Life Boost?
I'm not too sure. Life Boost.
Oh, Life Boost coffee.
Oh, coffee. Okay.
Yeah, so I would go on their webpage and just see if they offer any information about mold. And even if they mention fungus, they're probably a good company because they're paying attention.
Yeah. Okay. I think I like those like quick little things because it can be overwhelming as consumers, especially when you don't have the knowledge. Like I'm like literally like wish I could take notes right now, but I will watch the replay. But I think it's like when you can find little key things. So when someone goes to a website, it's like, do they mention mold free? Do they mention these keywords? Yeah. And then that helps them know that they're making a good, informed, conscious decision when they're purchasing this item. Because I tell my patients all the time, these companies just want your money. Greenwashing is very real. Mm-hmm. So they'll say all these things to, appear, but when you get down to the nitty gritty, it's like maybe 1% of the ingredients or the rest of, the label. So it's important to do your due diligence. So I appreciate you sharing all of this with us. One question that I definitely wanted to get to, because I get asked this one quite a bit, the connection between weight gain, stubborn weight loss, and whether it's a candida, a mold, a parasite, any correlation?
Yeah, so with candida and mold, I see weight gain and weight plateaus. They can't lose weight and struggle. It's also a big implicator for food cravings and overeating because you have to realize that these bugs love sugar. So if you're
Yes.
starving them, and this is something if you do an anti-candida diet and you're starving them, you're going to have more cravings. But as long as you're aware of that, then you can plan ahead and be mentally strong to fight through that because it's not you, it's the bugs inside of you that want it. So, but anyway, I usually see that weight stalls or weight issues are usually with candida and mold. And so handling that and helping the body eliminate the toxins in the trash is important in helping push through those plateaus. Because if you think about it, you know, you're inflamed when you have an infection. So everything's swelling with water and it's just holding. So I see that with candida. With parasites, you could see actually weight loss, unexplained weight loss as well.
Okay.
A parasite is exactly that. The only way they survive is by attaching onto a host. They don't want to kill you, even though they can. That wouldn't be strategic for them because they need us to live. They would just kill themselves. So they wanted to take enough from you, but not enough to really kill you.
Got it. Okay.
So parasites, I usually see weight loss.
Okay. Any probiotics that you can take that won't make candida worse?
Yeah, so there are probiotics that are labeled histamine free, and those are the ones that you want to go to. So bacteria within us, some of them naturally make histamine, but histamine's job is to, right, people think of allergies, watery, sneezing, running. Histamine's job is to make everything open up so more fluid can come in so that immune cells can get in there. They can do their job and take out the trash. So histamine for people also who have fungus is not a good thing because the histamine's already being released by your own immune system because of the underlying infection. So you want to go for histamine free strain probiotics, and it usually will list it on the front. So one that I really like is Bifido Maximus by the Gut Institute. And then Megaspore Biotic by Microbiome Labs. They both contain histamine free. And I like to put those two together and take them together.
Oh, so you're combining probiotics.
Yeah, because those Megaspores are spore based. It's a different type of, they're different organisms than the Bifido lactose strains that are in the Bifido Maximus.
Okay, that makes sense. So we talked about parasites. Are all fungi bad for you?
No, absolutely not. There's actually good probiotic yeast out there. I use them in my office too. It's actually one of the best things I do to treat toenail fungus in my office is give them something called lactic acid yeast, and it actually combats the bad guys out. So
For toenail fungus?
yeah. Oh yeah. I've had great success with this one product. Yeah. Just one a day, one pill a day. Well, and the other one's called Zymex. It's by standard process.
Okay.
One pill a day.
Okay, so we've talked about testing, we've talked about detecting. Essentially, the whole idea is really starts and stems with gut health.
100%.
And
yeah, it starts with gut health, absolutely. And the next thing is toxicity level.
Yeah.
So we have to understand
which is like environment, home.
Yeah, and not even just environment, home, but just in our lifestyles of chemicals and toxins. Because you have to understand, all these organisms are meant to live with us. The fungus, the parasites, the bacteria, the viruses. We're all supposed to be in a symbiotic relationship. It's just who gets out of line and why. And that, oh, I just lost my train of thought because I got a phone call. Where was I going?
We live together. We're designed to live together with fungus.
Yeah, we need to live together with all of these things. So there are good guys that are there with us, and we use that to treat some of the bad guys out of there.
Okay. There was one comment I think I sent to you. Someone did send me a message. They're like, I've done the Candida cleanse. It didn't work. Any other suggestions? I'm pretty sure they probably just did a very short version of the Candida cleanse. Now we know that it needs to be quite a few months, 6 to 8 months at least.
Yeah, so those are my questions. How long did you do it for? What products did you use? Were you taking something to take care of biofilms, like some enzyme or some, there's an oil, there's a lot of oils that break biofilms called like black human seed oil, coriander oil, undecanoic oxide. I don't even know how to say it. It's so hard. Right. So how long were they doing it for? What was, and then also how was their diet during that process?
Okay.
And how do they know they still have it? That's another thing I want to know.
Yeah, they didn't say that. I reached back out to them, so I guess maybe they either haven't checked or not, but those were just pretty much most of the questions. And then we had questions here too. So children, can they get candida and fungus and mold? And are they just as susceptible as us older, bigger humans?
Yeah, I would say so. I think, I mean, obviously the younger you are, the more healthy and vibrant your cells are. So they're able, when I work with children, I haven't seen candida mold yet. I see actually parasites more in children.
Oh,
Yeah, I see it a lot. And, but when it comes to children, they usually recover very quickly. It's not as long as adults. I would say half the time, as long as parents are really good about keeping them on the supplements and the foods.
so parasites in kiddos, will it still be like that weight loss that we're seeing? Will there be behavioral issues or changes?
Yeah, 100%. So parasites are, they're crazy. So the most things I see with children are ticks. And I mean, like, they'll twitch. They're like
Oh,
shakers, right? So this actually gets misdiagnosed maybe as hyperactive ADHD, right? Sometimes they can't sleep at night, or when they lay down to go to sleep, they get more awake and more excited. And it's because parasites are active while you're sleeping. So when you lay down, when the lights go out, they're having a ball. That's when they're doing their thing. So most people can't sleep. So kids who can't sleep or fall asleep, anal itching is another one. Bedwetting is another. Teeth grinding at night, huge implication for parasites as well. Yeah. So, and on top of the other things that kind of overlap with candida and mold, which is like the anxiety and the difficulty focusing and the brain fog, nutrient deficiencies. Your nails are really brittle, right? Because they're stealing their nutrients from you. So things become weak.
my gosh, I'm just like, mind is blown. This is why I refer out. And I'm so glad I met you, because you have your specialty and your expertise, and I have mine. And there's just some things that, like, I would have never thought to make the connection with teeth grinding. But you're right, parasites are active at night. So when you have a child that's like, I can't sleep, or I'm up, or they're constantly making noise in their bedroom, there could be a reason, maybe diet, too much sugar, but
Yeah.
absolutely they could have a parasite.
Yeah, something is irritating their nervous system, and it's just on all the time. It can't relax. So,
Oh my gosh, that was amazing.
yeah.
We're gonna have to do like another one every other month or something like this, because I'm just like, I feel like we can continue to go down the rabbit hole of all of these things that come up. Because again, even just talking about kiddos, I work with a lot of moms that have children, and moms are always putting their kids first, and they're like, I just need to figure out my child. And it's like, a lot of these things could apply to their kiddos, which will help take one thing off their plate. Their kids get better, they can focus on their health. So I feel like it's just one of those things that,
Yep,
yeah.
it's definitely manageable. Yeah, and then just it's hard to diagnose. It's hard to find out if you have parasites. They don't just live in your gut. They can be anywhere in the body. They can be in your brain. They can be in your blood cells. Everything. But there are, I think it's like I think it was 17% was the last metric I read. And then the other one I read was 8% that it's ever found in stool. So you could get a stool test and say, you don't have parasites, you're fine, but you might still have them. So there's other lab tests that you can run that you can look for. So one of the like blood markers that you can look for is eosinophils on the CBC. Do you pull CBCs? Yeah, so
I do.
blood counts. When eosinophils are high, usually people think allergies and asthma, but that could also mean parasites. If you see ferritin levels are off, or red blood cells are off, low anemic type situations, that can also be either could be high or low. You can also look for CRP, which is the non-specific inflammation marker, and then any low or really high white blood cell counts are another one. And then, you can still do a stool test. They still show, but just don't rely on it. Use your blood work. And then I do something in my office called muscle testing, which is the primary way that I find parasites in a lot of my patients when their doctors aren't even bringing it up. And I would say that is the most successful part of what I do is uncovering this thing that is untraceable in other tests.
Oh, I agree with you, Jen. We do need a part two. Don't worry, I'm going to bring Dr. Loredana back. So Dr. Loredana, please share all your contact info. I'll make sure to post it in the caption with this video. But please share everything with everybody, how they can get in touch with you, how can they follow you, and all of those things. Because I'm pretty sure a lot of people have light bulbs. Like, I think I might have some of these issues.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for having me, guys. I'll put everything in here, okay?
Okay, perfect. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having
me. I love this. Thank you. I'm like invigorated now.
Take the info and run. I'll catch you later.
All right. Take care. Bye everyone. Are you typing right now, Dr. Loredana?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll make sure to let you finish typing, and then I'll.
Yeah. Well, I'll put my contact info in here, and then
no worries.
Out to me.
Does tea have mold in it too?
Tea can, yeah. Tea can.
As I sip my herbal tea, I'm like, What?
Yeah, you can. All right. I just put my at Life Mod Solutions where everyone can find me. Okay.
Beautiful. Perfect. I'll make sure to take you in this. Thank you so much, Dr. Laura
Thank
Donna.
you. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.